Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the House of Steel broadcast channel. We are thrilled to be back with you after a wonderful summer hiatus. Um, Back to talk to you about all things leather and life and uncooperative covers. I'm just going to do this and continue. Um, we're thrilled to be back and very excited about the things that we're going to talk about this year. I am joined by my co-host and my protege and one of my favorite people, Reese Diamond. Um, Hello, Reese. Say hello to the peoples.
Peace, sir. Peace, family. Peace, world. How y'all doing? Looking forward to today's conversation. It's going to be amazing.
Thank you. And I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment out to mention that Reese just celebrated his birthday on Friday. And so we
Yes.
want to say happy 21st to
I'll
Reese.
take that. Yes, I will
Yeah,
take
to Reese, you don't look a day over today.
that. Well
And
done.
we are very happy to celebrate with you
Thank you, sir.
your birthday. So before we start and bring our amazing special guest, I just
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be offering this year in terms of our educational conversations. Um, and one of the purposes of the House of Steel is education. It is something that's very important to us. And there are many ways to learn. You can learn in a classroom setting, or you can learn just from talking to people and learning about their experiences. And we certainly love to bring people in from all corners of the kink fetish leather BDSM community so that you get a number of perspectives. And also, you can come to learn resources as you continue on in your journey, because we bring on people with a great level of subject matter expertise to talk about these different topics. So this year we will continue to do fireside chats, which will be co-hosted by Reese and I. And then and in those fireside chats, we'll be having conversations with people in the community about different topics that are relevant to the community. Reese and I will also offer the Dynamics of Dynamics conversations where we talk about issues relative to BDSM power dynamics. In addition, Call and I will be back with more Can We Talk sessions
Mhm.
where we talk about all things life and leather. And lastly, we're very excited this year to launch a new series called Yucks You May Yum. And I'm really excited about this because we're going to be presenting kinks that many people say this is a hard pass. I would never do that. I don't know why people do that. And bring people on who are practitioners of those kinks and have a chance to learn what it is they love about them. And perhaps you may find a kink that you didn't know that you enjoyed. I remember when I was pledging Onyx 370 years ago, our application had the question, what what kinks are you currently practicing?
Yeah.
What kinks are hard no's? And my three hard no's were CBT, scat, and blood. No.
Okay. Well, the first
And
one, clearly.
today the house color is teal. All these flames are teal. I'm teal all over because CBT is my primary kink. So you never know what you're going to fall in love with,
That's
what's
true.
going to resonate with you. So we want to have a chance to offer some of these kinks to you so that you can expand your horizons and add some things to your toy box, which is always important. But today, I don't want to take a lot of time talking because I talk a lot. And I shouldn't be talking while we have a guest of the caliber that we have today. So I want to bring on Ms. D to the stage. Welcome, Ms. D.
Hello, let me unmute myself.
Oh, we hear you.
Okay.
It is wonderful to see you and to have you. on today to talk about a subject that is, I think, probably the cornerstone of all conversations that we need to have in our community, and certainly should be the basis for any conversation we're going to have about any kink or anything else we do, which is why we're thrilled to kick off this season with a conversation about consent with Ms. D. And for those of you who don't know, I'm going to share her bio, which is more modest than it doesn't speak to everything that she brings to the community. But Ms. D, also known as Princess Delilah, is the consent queen whose work is driven by her core principles: reigning respect, empowering voices, and building boundaries together. A queer polyamorous leather woman, certified cuddlist, which I love to death, and consent educator, Ms. D hosts the Supreme Embrace Social for Cuddles, Connection, and Community, and offers individual cuddle sessions specifically designed to explore consent practices, childlike play, and boundary strengthening in an affirming way. She is also the vice president of Onyx Pearls New York Northeast and a founding member of the House of Supreme. Ladies and gentlemen, this amazing human is Ms. D.
Thank you. Thank you.
And, we're going to start off by getting to know a little bit about Ms. D because not everyone has had the pleasure of sharing space or having a conversation. Even if you know of her, you may not know her. So I'm going to start off with the question, what brought you to the kink leather community?
What brought me to the kink community? I feel like being queer, we're all a little kinky because we're already doing something that's, society says is taboo. So being more open-minded and expansive, like I'll try almost anything twice. And I had a partner of mine, I was married, and they wanted to try some things. And I was like, oh, this is very interesting. So I ended up chained to a bookcase. And then I was like, oh, they were like, you're a masochist. And I'm like, what's that? So now I got to go research. So when people tell you about things now, what does that mean? Oh, there's other people who do certain things like this. So then I went to the books and started learning and then wanted to explore more. I met the first dominatrix and the submissive was on the floor. And I really just wanted to talk to him about like, well, why are you on the floor? Like, you want to do this? Like, this is exciting for you. Like, blink twice if you need help. Me and him developed a relationship. So I just was able to explore and ask more questions to the submissive. And although like we were in ministry at the time and I, unbeknownst to me, we weren't allowed to practice this. So I was like, well, that kink stuff went away. I don't know. And I didn't have the voice to express like, hey, I want to do this again. So when we opened up our marriage and my partner wanted another person, I was like, well, what do I get out of the deal? And it was like, well, what do you want? I'm like, I don't know. Remember that kink stuff, about 5 years ago that we was doing? So that's when I ended up going into the community more, meeting people and actually going to munches. So it was first just bedroom only, a little exploration with some professional dominatrix and learning more about those people. And then going actually into the community after I expanded my relationship.
What's your favorite kink?
My hands only impact. I love using my hands over the knee spanking, punching. I love punching some big old booties. CBT is on my list. That was one of my first kinks when I was just doing kink with men. I didn't know. I was like, oh, it's different with ladies. But being a queer woman, it was like more excitement. It was like an adrenaline rush. It was like, okay, you're getting thrilled, pleasured in another way, but I'm getting thrilled. Like, this is fun. This is exciting. This makes me feel like good inside. So just even exploring why we're doing the things we're doing and then going home and sitting home, like thinking about it, like, okay, that was fun, but why was it fun? Or I did some shit I maybe like I wouldn't have done normally. Or, I started playing on the sadistic side, sitting home like, well, why do I like this? So talking to more people and finding like other people do this as well.
What is your favorite kink toy or favorite piece of kink equipment?
Favorite equipment, leather whip. I have one called Green Beauty. So yes, definitely whips.
What kind of whip is it?
It's a dragon tail.
Oh,
It's a dragon tail.
yeah, nice, nice, nice. I also enjoy a single tail.
I'm learning about the single tails. I'm getting in. I have a single tail that I was gifted by a first client back in the day when I did some other things.
Yeah, I enjoy the single tail. I don't hit people with the single tail, but I love to pluck clothespins off of people with the single tail. I had that experience as a sub.
Okay.
And it was the adrenaline rush was just ridiculous. So I love that. So you currently live in New York?
I actually live in Philadelphia right now.
Oh, do you?
Yes, I moved to Philadelphia a couple months ago.
Oh, okay. How do you?
Yes.
How's that going?
It's interesting. We're still getting adjusted, but I'm here.
Very nice. Well, you're still close.
I was just in New York yesterday, so I'm always out there.
Okay. And the Philadelphia leather community is really starting to do a lot of stuff. So that'll be awesome for you, I'm sure. Okay. Well, my question was going to be, if you didn't live in New York, where would you want to live? So we'll say if you couldn't live in New York or Philly, since you're there now, where would you want to live?
Some island, somewhere I ain't gotta pay taxes. I could just live and be free.
I know that's right.
Where's that island at? I don't know where it's at, but
The
somewhere.
last people who said that ended up on Epstein Island.
No, I don't want to be on that island there. Oh, listen.
So be careful. You show up and it'll be P. Diddy and
Right,
tattoos.
you ain't want to pay taxes. Look, we giving you some money, girl. Be
There's
careful
no
what you
free
ask for.
ride. There is no free ride.
Listen, let me be a little bit more specific.
What is your favorite piece of leather?
Favorite piece of leather that I own, or just?
Oh, okay. That's what I was thinking, but now I'm intrigued about what the answer would be if it's,
Because it still would be my whip. But like my favorite piece is like I was gifted a leather keychain when I joined Onyx Pros, and it's something so small. It was my first little piece of leather, and I just sniffed it the whole day. So I still carry that around.
It's nice to be able to. It's nice to have a piece that you could take with you, and even in vanilla environments, you still have your leather.
It's like it looks like a little flogger, but nobody else knows. They're like, oh, the little pencils.
And then you never know. You might find some people who know, and then it's like, oh, let me keep in touch with you. Okay, and so last question: chocolate, caramel, or vanilla?
Vanilla. I don't know. Vanilla sounds so plain, and every time I ask for vanilla ice cream, everybody look at me weird. Like vanilla is a flavor.
Vanilla indeed.
It is.
Indeed.
I like vanilla. You add little sprinkles on there, a little razzle dazzle. But I love me some vanilla.
A little razzle dazzle. Okay. All right. So, tell us a little something. You told us about how you started off in kink. But since your start, now you're a member of the Pearls, you're a member of the House of Supreme. You do some things in your own right in terms of being an educator and all of that stuff. So tell us a little bit about, not necessarily outlining your journey, but a little bit about what drives your journey. Like, what are the things that you are passionate about and fuels your journey?
For me, it's just helping people be someone better. I remember I came out when I was pregnant, 19 years old. My mother kicked me out the house. So being homeless with a child, community really helped me. So I was in touch with a lot of different people who connected me to resources and help. I wanted to be a politician when I was younger. But after going through that experience, I was like, no, I want to be a person who helps others as well. So my first little internship, I worked with Hedrick Martin Institute and teaching teen intimate partner violence, about homophobia. So even the start of me was for me being helped in a way that was so powerful. I wanted to always give back. So like every job or every place I've been has been something helping other people. I created a mom squad when I was younger to help other mothers deal with the difficulties of raising children, advocating for people, maybe if they had with ACS cases, sometimes we always think like, oh, the mother's bad, but sometimes it's not about that. It's the system. So advocating for
Yeah.
the parents as well, not just the children, but like I really, really like who's taking care of the mother. I taught children's ministry for a number of years. So like for me, it's because people around me helped me. I always wanted to help other people. And then with consent, working in different social services fields, dealing with women who had like childhood sexual assault or women living with HIV. I'm learning, listening to their stories and knowing that if they had better consent practices in the world, that these wouldn't happen. So what about preventing? So that's what I wanted to start doing, teaching consent for kids. And I went and got certified to do that. But then that work also comes into the kink. So it's like, I can use the same work that I'm using for helping these women, helping children, as well as helping the community that I'm a part of.
That's incredible. You mentioned ministry a bunch, and Reese and I are both very church, and often speak church back and forth to each other like another language.
Very true.
But we all know that the act of ministry isn't restricted only to religion. It's really just looking after the needs of someone and making sure that those needs are met. And I think it's beautiful that you also looked at, one way to help children is to help the mothers.
Absolutely.
And, when you have strong families, you have stronger children.
That's right.
And that is very important. So what led you to the Pearls? How did you come to be involved? And greetings to all my Onyx Pearl siblings out there. But tell us how you came to be a part of the Pearls and how that contributed to your journey.
So just being in like kink, learning more. My first munch was the Harlem Black Munch. So I was surrounded already by Black folk.
Sounds amazing.
And learning more. I just happened to just walk into a bar night. My sister Silent, she was crossing over. And one of my good friends, me and her knew each other for about 20 years. She picked up the pamphlet. She was like, this is all you. Like, you need to join this. So mind you, I had just resigned from ministry. So I was like, I'm not joining another organization right now. I need a break. I need to breathe. Mm-hmm. But learning about what their mission was, like support, educate, empower. And I was like, yes, this is something that I would be interested in. Also, I thrive in community. Some people like, I was born alone, I'm gonna die alone, and I walk by myself. I'm like, I'm not that kind of person because me giving to others and receiving is like what fuels me. Mm-hmm. So I was looking for a community. So I was like, well, let me learn a little bit more about these women. What I would say about people joining organizations, get to know the people who are in the organization. So I was just really focused on the mission. I'm like, I like the mission. This is what I align with, so I'm going to go for it. Mm-hmm. But learning, like dealing with women and different personalities, I had not experienced that in that kind of way. Mm-hmm. But I would say it actually, like even working with consent, learning about boundaries, it gave me actual practice on strengthening my own boundaries. Because that's what I really learned. I have poor boundaries myself. Mm. So being on the line, I don't like people talking about me. I don't know people. I got a fear. That's my phobia. But when you pledge, everybody talking about you, everybody all up in your business, they all going to sit behind there. They're going to get into you. So it was a stretch for me. And then also, like, if you are who you say you are, it's okay for them to talk about you, right? Mm-hmm. Stand on who you are. Be integral. So like the values of the community and what the Pearl said, it helped me just like be better within myself and be okay with other people talking about you. That was a fear of mine. And that was, as I was working on strengthening that within myself, I was helping other people as well, because I know how difficult it is. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to put myself out there because I don't want this, or I don't want to create this. Like, I don't want to talk about, maybe I didn't want to talk about CBT today. Mm-hmm. I know I can tell you that, like, oh, that's a topic that's off limits. As before, where it was something like that was so frightening to me to even say that, I was like, I'm not even going to do the interview because they may ask me about CBT.
Mm.
But working through those small challenges. So with the pearls, like that helped me elevate and grow, and then also see ways that I can help other people.
Nice. Very nice.
So it's been a journey. So I pledged twice. I didn't even do it the first time. So well, actually, with the third time's a charm. So I finally made it in.
Very nice.
Question: what exactly is a cuddleologist?
A cuddlist is a professional
Cuddlist.
cuddle therapy. Yes.
Love that.
It's exactly what it sounds like.
So, just for people who don't know, and I'm kind of one of those people actually right now. I love to cuddle. Anyone who's ever shared a bed with me will tell you that I will cuddle and lock on, and you won't move until the morning. If you have to go to the bathroom, hold it, whatever, or wake me up because I'm holding on tight. But what are some elements of cuddling? Because I do feel like that's kind of an intimate act. So what are some elements of cuddling that people may not know about or may not consider?
Well, first, you're creating a container for a person. I'm cuddling and I'm telling you that I'm only going to do something I wholeheartedly and want to do. So be free to ask everything that you want to ask. And then I'm not going to do anything that you don't want to do as well. So you can't keep me in till the morning because I got to pee in the middle of the night. But then coming in with that establishment, so we both know that we're coming into this agreement that we're going to do this thing. Cuddling is very much rooted in consent because you're talking about what we're going to do in this very intimate space. Yes, there's therapeutic benefits in cuddling, stress reduction. My blood pressure has been down since I started doing this, and Black people sometimes we got this high blood pressure thing going on. But the boundary setting was really what drove me with cuddling. Actually, you have to talk about the things you want. So it's not also just saying what I don't want, but what do you actually want and speaking up for yourself. So we're going to have this set time. We're going to do this thing, and then we're going to end. So we know that there's going to be an end and a beginning. And then all the fun stuff happens in the middle, but then also practicing, like if you feel uncomfortable, say something. You can ask what you want, but I'm not going to, you don't get guaranteed to do everything that you want to do in a cuddle session. You're guaranteed to come in the room and have the conversation with me. And then being able to hear the rejection of no and sit with it. And how does that feel for you?
And, and that's something many people have a hard time doing, like speaking up for what it is that they are looking for in something. We'll talk a little bit more about that with consent, because that is also a very important part, the negotiation portion of the consent. But before we jump into that, I do want to learn a little bit more about the House of Supreme. Do you mind sharing a little bit about the House of Supreme?
Sure. So it's 4 members currently, and like your house, we are education house. Our main principle is the African principle of Ubuntu. I am because you are. So, like I said, I believe deeply with community. So learning from the people who have been doing this for a long time. We didn't start this thing, definitely, but we want to learn from those who have and then pass it on and make education accessible to other folks.
And why is consent such an important topic to you?
Because I believe it is the foundation of everything that we do, within kink, leather, and then just even interacting with humans. So it goes beyond what we do in the bedroom, just interacting with folks. And I feel like if the world is more consent, we'll have a lot less issues. So some of the problems that I see in the social services field and the problems, even doing consent advocacy work and the problems that I hear, I feel like if people had more education, it would be less issues. If people actually talked about it more, it'll be less of what's happening, because some of the things is ignorance. It's not actually blatant disrespect. It's really more ignorance than anything.
And oftentimes when someone does something that feels like a consent violation to you, that people automatically jump to this is disrespect, where many times it really is just ignorance of how to have the conversation during negotiation in the beginning, ignorance about that you can't introduce new topics or new actions that weren't negotiated or that the person may not be expecting, and that could be create some feeling in them. So that is a very important part of consent. Also understanding, was this an attempt to harm me, or is this more of an opportunity for education for this person?
Right.
Even though
Also
I may
understanding why people may not even be able to come to that conclusion at the time, like for us being more trauma informed and learning how like different people process. Somebody like they're very hysterical, is like their victim, they're always like it always seems like a vigilante, like they just always see danger.
Yeah.
But they're understanding why they do that. You're like, oh well, let's just stay away from that person because they call everyone a consent violator. Or how about let's bring them in and have a conversation with them instead.
So let's talk a little bit about how the relationship between trauma and consent, because there is a definite connection between the two. Can you talk a little bit about how, I don't even know how to form the question, how either consent not being honored causes trauma, or how previous trauma can make people leery about consent?
Oh, absolutely. So people like learning how people respond to trauma. Like some people automatically they see danger everywhere, or some people end up start being a little bit more reckless. But when you're doing negotiations, looking for those indicators in a person's face and in their body, looking how they respond, seeing if there's tension, and then also knowing in yourself what trauma or history that you may have that may reduce your capacity to give consent. So like maybe because like I know I have trauma with men. So like I know for a negotiation, it's going to take a lot longer if I'm going to bottom for a man because of my trauma history. I'm going to always think like, oh, stranger danger, like is something going on. But I know that it's something inside of me. So I know it'll come up. I feel it. That gut feeling that you have, like you pay attention to it. And it's not always something that is bad. It's just something that we need to pay attention to. So when you have the gut feelings like, okay, let me pause and investigate this a little further. So in order for me to feel safe, I have to do further and longer negotiation because I know I have that trauma history. But then also knowing that about other people. So sometimes we're like, oh, I'm just going to push my way and push my agenda, without like noticing their lived experience. We just take for us being more trauma informed. It's not like we have to go and get like trauma certified and but just being aware of how it can show up in a person's body.
You also spoke to a level of introspection that is necessary. I mean, when you were talking about your own experience, you mentioned how you are aware because of your history of traumatic experiences with men that you need to take some extra steps to make sure that you are going to be comfortable in even giving consent in those situations. And introspection is something we talk about in the house all the time. I'm sure every time I say the word, they're like, not again. But I feel like that is knowing yourself and what your triggers are, what your fears are, what your what your vulnerabilities are, is also key to being able to have a successful experience, but also being able to share that. It's one thing to know it, and it's another to be able to share that as part of the process. So when it comes to the process of negotiating a scene and getting to a point where you can provide consent to do something or a dynamic or whatever it is, Can you talk a little bit about like what are the important things to focus on during that negotiation?
I think even before you get into the negotiation, it's more about learning yourself.
Mm.
Because you don't want to come to the table and still trying to figure stuff out at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I was, when you were saying something about introspection, like I first started in 2020 with my boundary book.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a book of personal boundaries. Like I said, I felt like my boundaries were poor. So I was like, well, let's write them down. Now, this is the concrete book of D. So these are the things that you're going to stand for or not stand for. So at least like when I come to negotiation, I already have a firm belief of who, or a firm knowing of who I am. Like, yes, there's some wiggle room, but you know your hard limits, your soft limits, and why. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why these are things for me. So sitting with yourself, I don't think a lot of people sit with themselves first before they get into the negotiation table. They're like, I don't know, let's figure this out together. And that could be fun too for some people.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing, having this like a baseline of who you are first before you get into negotiation. Mm-hmm. And let's talk about what we actually want to do. Like, I feel with consent, it's like, oh, don't do this. Like, and then people come out the scene like, oh, that was whack. That was not okay. Like that, like something happened, but you didn't speak up about what would be enjoyable. You talked about everything that you didn't want to do, but let's talk about actually what I want to do, what I want to enjoy, what I want to get out of this scene, what I want to experience, not just the things I want to do, but how do I want to feel in the moment? So like, consent is not just about the doing of the things, but how do you want to feel? And then even asking a person about that, or asking yourself, how do I want to feel when I go into this scene? Or how do I want to feel when I go into this dynamic? Like, what do I want to get out of it?
And the how do I want to feel part is really important, because sometimes that is even enough, no matter how skilled the top is in the scene or how receptive the bottom is in the scene. Sometimes a disconnection on how I want to make the person feel and how the person wants to feel can also ruin an interaction. And sometimes that is enough of a reason to say, you know what, maybe we're not compatible for this thing. That's been something. It could have
just been more conversation that could have been had, and you would have had some compatibility, or you would have known before you went into the scene. But sometimes, like you can ask for what you want. I remember, like, because sometimes I can little out. Like, I'm a big age player. I like to play around, and I top in, and my giggles will come out. I may end up playing patty cake on your butt. And then the person who, like, if you're trying to have a cathartic scene, it's like, now this girl giggling behind me, and I hear patty cake, 1, 2, 3, or playing numbers, like that throws you totally out of your headspace.
Yeah.
But that's a conversation. Like, I don't have to play every time I top, but that's what I want to do. But if I'm being a service topper, we can negotiate. Like, I can be serious too, but just have that conversation.
So, I'm sorry, Reese, you were going to say?
Yes. So you mentioned earlier that you have a background in ministry. I also, as I mentioned, have a background in ministry as well. I'm curious to know, does your history in ministry affect how you view consent? Because often in ministry, we deal with people who have traumas and different backgrounds and experiences. Did that affect at all how you view and teach consent today?
No. I didn't grow up in church. When I was like, I got drugged there with my father. I had to go to my grandmother's house for the weekend, but I came to church in Christ on my own as an adult. So I do have a different relationship than I know some people who grew up, especially a lot of queer people who grew up and heard like certain things indoctrinated into them. Like, so I don't have that in my belief system. Like, I always know God loved me, who I am. God made me gay, kinky, queer, poly, all of this. So I have a different view than some people do. I do feel that teaching consent is part of my ministry. I know that teaching, like, I was a children's ministry director. Like, I love the children. I love the kids. I wanted to be a youth pastor when I was younger. But I feel that consent is my ministry. Like, this is what I'm here to do. I don't have to be in a building. I don't have to talk about Christ or God in order to spread the word. I'm supposed to spread love, and by teaching people how to build better boundaries within themselves, teaching them to love themselves, and we can have better love within the world. So I still feel like I'm still doing what God's called me to do. So in that way, it does feel like this is my ministry. I'm teaching consent.
I love that. Of all the things that you've done so far connected to consent, what do you believe is the major number one, if you could give it that, misconception within our community as it relates to consent?
I think people think consent is a one-time thing. Like when you talk about teaching
Mm,
consent, it's like I already know that. Like, why do I have to go to a consent class? Um, a lot of what I teach is embodied consent. It's like how it feels in your body, and you can know everything in the world theoretically, but how does it in practice? Because even when I started my boundary book, I was writing things down, and when I go out into community, I was like, "Damn, you didn't do the thing you said you was going to do."
mm,
But I had the information, but why didn't I do it? So actually going from theory to practice.
mm.
So actually understanding and practicing these skills that we want to say that we value so much. So it's not a one-time thing. I think everybody thinks I learned the consent. I know yes means yes, no means no. But thinking about like power dynamics, hierarchy, gender differences, so there's a lot that comes into play with consent more than just yes is yes and no is no. And it's not like a one-time thing. Consent is built into a lot of different classes. Like you teach fire play, you're talking about consent. You teach whips, you're talking about consent. So I feel like if we just add it in, sprinkle everywhere we go, we'd be better off.
Love it.
And you mentioned one thing that started many things actually, but one thing that you mentioned that started my wheels turning was you mentioned consent around dynamics. And a lot of times in our community, the conversation about consent is really related to almost pick up play scenarios where it's like, I have a whip. I'm going to hit you with this whip and you'll get hit with this whip.
Mm-hmm.
We agree, fine, and go. But consent, one thing that I learned through the leather community is that consent isn't only something that applies to when I play. I gain strength as a person in many scenarios with my biological family and how I deal with them, with my job and what I allow them to do or ask of me. And that I had the ability to say no to many things, or even that I have the right to opt in or opt out of whatever situation this is.
Right.
And that's something that people really don't talk about when it comes to consent, especially the establishment of dynamics.
Right.
Many people reach out to me asking me, hey, how do I join your house? Hey, can you be my sir? And everything. And virtually willing to sign over a blank check when it comes to what would happen next and consent. So in the situation where you are the dom or in the dom's position, or you'll be the top in the kink, how can you communicate to the person that you are in conversation with what their power is in the situation and how, what consent rights they have?
Just having that open conversation, allowing them to know that you can change your mind at any time. Asking questions about what their desires are as well. It's not just about what you want, but really getting them to understand that they can change their mind. I feel like for me, I was a person and I made a decision. I felt like I had to stay in that decision because I made it. It's like, now you got to suffer in silence. Not knowing that like it's okay to change your mind. So now me knowing that I was a person like that other people can be like that as well. So even me dating somebody or being with a person, like, okay, this is okay. You can change your mind. We talked about this. But the person in power, like even if you're the older person, you got 20 years on your your top, talking to them, like maybe they thought I had to be this dom because you have all this experience. But it's like, no, I wanted you to be yourself. So actually having those conversations as equals before you get into the dynamic really does help. And I've had it to where a person, they're like, oh, I didn't know I could say no. And then they said no to me. I was like, well, here we go now. So I talked myself out.
Right.
But I rather you know that this is something that you actually want to do than you feeling forced and pressure to do something. And then me knowing, because I was that person who sat there and would not say anything, to know that other people will do that as well. So it was like, no, I don't just want to just hear the yes, because I want the yes. Of course, I want the yes, but I want to make sure it's an authentic yes. And sometimes it takes a little bit of digging. And then sometimes we don't know. People lie. Like, people lie. We could do, the thing is to do our best, like to just have better practices in vetting and asking better questions, and really creating that equal vetting area where it's like, no, we're two people right now. You can have your say today. And then, if you want to consent, your rights away later on. And then also knowing that if you do this, you can change your mind. 6 months from now, you didn't know what it was going to feel like to be in this dynamic. You didn't know what it was going to feel like to have this power exchange. Or so now that you're actually in it, it's like, well, this wasn't how I thought it was going to go. So either you could renegotiate or you could end it. But knowing that that's an option.
And that's something that people really don't understand, even when it comes to allowing use of pictures of you or videos of you and things of that nature. A yes today can change.
Yes, it can.
In the future. And not only does the person have the power to change their yes to a no, but it's the responsibility of the other person to accept that yes and act as if it was always a no, and take those corrective actions, which may not even be, and often it's not even based on the other person. If I posted a video of us playing and you said I could post that, in a week, you might decide you want that taken down, and it has nothing to do with me, but it is my place to respect that.
Absolutely.
And move forward. So are there any false concepts about consent that you find when you're talking to people, like this is a common misperception of consent?
Legal and like what's moral. So like somebody would say, it's mine. You gave me the video. It's not illegal for me to have it. Absolutely. You are within your legal right to have that picture. I can take a picture of anybody walking down the street and post it on my Facebook page. It's legal, but is it right? And if we're going to be in this community to talk about integrity, like it's not about, are we going to just the law, or are we going to do what's actually right? So some people, like they'll hide behind what's legal and not what's integral. The laws haven't caught up yet.
And in some ways, they are skewed incorrectly. I think it's more important to go by I think our community offers much greater protections for people when it comes to consent than the law does. And when I'm having conversations with vanilla people who find out I'm kinky and then want to come to me with the morality around it, I ask them very simple questions like, okay, well, how would you feel if you agreed to go out on a date with someone, and before the date you agreed that you were going to do these things, and that was the end of the date? And at the end of the date, there's no pressure or questions about anything, because you know that the other person is only going to look to do the things you've agreed to. How would that make you feel? And then they're like, well, that would be great. And it's like, is that what it's like for you now? And they're like, no. It's like, well, that's what it's like in our community. That's how it's set up.
That's how it works.
It's supposed to.
I think one of the misconceptions I would say is that kink offers you safety. People come into this expanded community and we're embracing this freedom, and I think sometimes they let their guard down. These are the same human beings that live in the world with us. So still do your vetting, still get to know people, still see if they're, try the spirit by the spirit. Like if what they saying is actually what they're doing. So it's not just because we're all free and open and we've all got the consent 101 class that we're doing it right.
Mhm.
And it's an everyday practice. It's a skill. Like I said, building boundaries together. We're doing this together. Like I'm still in this with the person. Like I hear people, we're talking, building boundaries. I still have difficulty boundaries with my father. So like, as I'm working on it, like I can maybe with a peer, but then with my superior, like my dad is still different. So it's a constant thing that we're working on.
You mentioned classes earlier, so I'm curious to know what type of classes or trainings do you offer when it comes to consent?
Well, cuddle parties is the main one, the Supreme Social. It is a consent, basically a consent workshop where we talk about embodied consent and how it feels. So we're actually going through the exercises and practices. So it's not just we're learning, we're getting out, we're touching, we're talking, we're saying no, seeing how it feels, and then we like after each exercise, we're talking about it, and then we get into the nice little cuddle area. I also have the same workshop set up that can be taught for children as well as adults. It tweak into different areas without the cuddling, but still really feeling how it feels within your body to say these things, to practice these things. Like we said, I do consent with also different kink, like things that you need to maybe ask or things you maybe think of asking, better negotiation questions. But what I really do like with one-on-one is practicing your boundaries. I started doing that with like the women living with HIV, having to disclose to partners. So we did like role play and then learned that it helped. So within my consent work, we actually practice on boundaries. Like, what do you need help with? What skills? Like you said, like maybe you're good with your peers and your kink partners, but when I go to work, I can't tell my boss this, and I'm getting like a pushover. So actually working on that and seeing how it feels, like going and trying and come back and let's see how let's talk about it again. So like embodying how it feels and the practical skills that we need to be more consensual.
And so you mentioned a couple times different groups that you worked with around consent. You mentioned children, you mentioned women, and that could be hetero women or queer women. Do you find that there are general understanding, if there is a general understanding about kink in the leather community, or do you find that cultural influences or gender-based influences can also add a different perspective or element to the conversation of kink that should be considered?
Absolutely. Like we all have the same history, we have the same framework to start with. I definitely know men, like queer men, they have maybe a different consent culture. I went to a gay men's bar and I saw things that I was like, huh. Like they just ran up to each other and grabbed each other's butt, and it's like that's different for me. Like I'm not experiencing this culture, so I was just sitting back, like an anthropologist, like let me do some research, and they turned around and everything was cool. With heterosexual women, I feel like they have this notion that boys will be boys, and they tolerate a lot of when men push boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear a lot of consent violations with heterosexual women with men. With blatant disrespect, like very coercion, sexual assault. Whereas in like queer communities, it doesn't happen. That part doesn't happen. We hear more like, oh, I like all girls are girls. We all touching each other. Everybody's grabbing somebody's ass, and I'm the one person who's maybe a little bit of prudish. I don't want nobody to grab my ass, but I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to be the odd person out.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think in each group is something different to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
With queer men, I'm still learning a little bit more about how everybody does things over there. But then also knowing that, like, it's you come into a place like, well, when you come in here, this is the opt-out area. So everybody touches until you say no. But as long as I know it's respected and I know that's the culture going in, I'm okay with that. And so like when you walk through these doors, you're gonna get touched. But you still have the right to your own body to say no. As far as like now when we have mixed company and mixed spaces, like a lot of things get blurred because I was able to do this one thing over here where it was okay, and I walked into this other area where this is taboo, and now I'm a consent violator.
Mm-hmm.
That's just because you're not educated in knowing the rules of this area, or maybe what was over here it was acceptable, but this is not really acceptable at all. Like sometimes people they say things is okay, and it's really not okay.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm an event producer, or even if I'm hosting a play party at my house,
Mm-hmm.
what steps should I take to make sure everyone understands how we are going to operate in this space?
Right. So now you have your event, like you have your agreement, your rules that you your standards.
Mm-hmm.
So now you giving everybody like this is the rules. For me, I would want to know. I'm quizzing you on it. Like let's have a conversation.
Mm.
Also allowing people to know like where I can go if something does go wrong. Having that be in public, so someone knows like, oh, this is you're going to take this serious.
Mm-hmm.
People feel safer when they know like I see there's rules here, but now what if a rule is broken? Because we see people have rules all the time and nobody does anything about them, so it's just there for decoration.
True.
So now I know that there's also a place now. I have this QR code or this place where I can talk to Master Steel Toe himself, and he's going to do something about this. Also have a process of what will be done if something is broken. So it's like, okay, I could just report it, but then what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
So me knowing now, I'm like, oh, there's steps, so now I can feel safer coming into your spot. But for you knowing that the person is consensual, like I said, people do lie, but then asking questions like, so this is the rule. Tell me back what it meant to you. Do you understand this? And then you can see like at least you got a basic understanding of this, and then make it a more continual thing. Like, so yes, you did the consent 101 to get into party the first time, but maybe now we need 6 months going down. You've been coming to the party 6 months. You need some refreshers.
Mm.
So having some like more education is not just like a one and done thing. So those are just some suggestions. I have like a lot more somewhere.
I mean, I think these are all nuggets. While you were talking, I was thinking about, when I host parties before the play party happens, I vet everyone who's coming, and then they are sent the rules for the forge, and this is how we'll conduct ourselves. And you have to agree to those rules before you come. And dungeon masters are identified, and they're asked to keep watch. And they're the people you go to if you're having a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I haven't ever done is to outline what the process is if there is a problem. It's just contact your dungeon master. So even just hearing this, I'm like, oh, okay, so there is a step beyond that. And here's what happens if there is an issue. And generally, it's you get kicked out.
And the Consent Academy has a lot of good frameworks and like education for leaders or people who are organizers to come up with like code of conduct. Mm-hmm. So like if like people who are thinking of throwing parties, it would be beneficial for them to take some of those classes as well.
And you said what academy?
Consent Academy.
Consent Academy.
Yes. Okay,
that is amazing. Reese, you have a final one more question or?
I do have a question actually. For someone who teaches and trains others in consent, I'm curious to know, in your opinion, what should restoration look like if someone violated someone's consent unknowingly, or anything connected to that? What would restoration, an honorable restoration, look like, or should look like within our community?
Different, because it depends on the offense, and that's what like one of the things that I'm very curious about for the Onyx Pearls, when you're pledging and doing your initiation, you have to do a presentation. I did my presentation on consent, and my question was, what happens to consent violators? And that's been a question for the last 5 years. I've been asking community leaders, and do we have like a standard framework for what happens? Like in theory, like I've taken classes on what I think should happen, but then what has actually happened and worked in real life. Mm-hmm. Definitely education, re-education, accountability person who's a neutral party because your friend going to always say that you're good. Showing that you can be better in community. But how do you show that you could be better unless you're in community? Like you can't just kick them out for 6 months and thinking that they're doing the work. But then also getting someone to agree to that accountability steps is the difficult thing. But like I have lots of framework and things that we think in theory can happen. But having these actual conversations with people who've been community leaders for 10, 15, 20 years, asking the questions like what's been done in the past, because you don't want to recreate the wheel. If you have something that's already good, let's build on that. Mm-hmm. But when there's nothing even official, or they say like, yes, we had the accountability people, but we see that hasn't worked. So, or even getting neutral parties coming in, trained mediators. But the education part, yes. And then somebody walking alongside you, because you can't get better by yourself, like in isolation.
What kind of training or I'm trying to get to what should be presented? What should a accountability partner need to know, or what skills should they need to possess in order to really be a good accountability partner for
just a person actually having the skills that you want that the person to model? So it's like lead by example. So it's not somebody who just knows it. Maybe if it's somebody who's been through the same thing. I've seen like some men who maybe they have had some history with prior abuse with women, and they mentor people who are currently going through it. So I know how it feels to do that. I've actually was wrong before, and then let me show you how we can do better together. Someone being empathetic, like, can you believe that the person's really going to change? Like, I'm not just here because like I have to be here, or because that's what the community said. Like someone who's really caring. Like I believe people can change. I really do believe that wholeheartedly. But it's not always my mission to help them either. So someone who can stand up to that person. Like it's certain people I'm like, I know I ain't gonna deal with you. Like you got too much mouth. Like I'm not dealing with it. But maybe someone like Master Still might be like, oh, I'm gonna shut that shit down right now. So like I'll walk with you because you ain't gonna play that with me. Like pairing people with the right person, and then who's the person to do that? Like who's the mighty council who knows everyone to say like you go with this one and you go with that one.
And looking back at old guard models, and old guard predates my entry into the leather community. I think because of my age and the fact that I'm a covered master now, people assume that I was old guard. My entry into kink itself started in '98. Okay. But really my participation in the leather community started in 2014. So, but old guard models, they had community councils, and this is before the internet, when everything was very local and much easier to control. You would have, if there was some kind of violation, there would be steps outlined, and then the people who are going to monitor the progress of the person who's working to restore themselves to the community would then come forth and say, this person has taken these steps and demonstrated these things. In the absence of that, and seeing how in our community, instances of perceived or actual violations can go viral so quickly. Mm-hmm. How would that accountability partner, what are some ways that they could come back to the community to say, hey, this person has taken these steps. I believe they've learned these lessons, and that they are now ready to be a part of our community, a healthy part of our community. How can that look?
It will start where like the violation occurred. Like wherever, if they was at the party at your home, so they're coming like you cannot come back until you do these things. You've also talked to other community people, because it's not just a danger to yourself, but you feel like they're a danger to the community as well. So they'll come back to you first, and then you have the responsibility of now, like, I'm going to share with the organization that I did tell that they were harmful, now that they're okay. but it will be going first back to wherever they were banned from.
Mm-hmm. That makes
And
sense.
it's slow. It's not going to be something that happens overnight. They think you're going to, like, you didn't wave a magic wand to get banned, so it's not going to wave a magic wand for you to come back either. So it may be a slower process.
But you know, the funny thing is, it can seem to people like it happened in an instant. You know, and I know exactly what you mean by it didn't happen in an instant. There was um, a process of either not knowing or understanding that led to that moment, or not caring. And then the moment happens. And I think for a lot of people, it starts at that moment. But I think that, as you're saying, it's important. When you were talking earlier about being introspective, understanding yourself and all of that, and understanding where you are and who are the people who are around you and
Absolutely.
and having an awareness of how your behavior will affect others. There is that process that is also part of that happens before, that people really don't consider. So I think a lot of times, like, you're looking on Facebook and you're like, oh, this person is a consent violator. And we also throw that term around in a way that doesn't necessarily always identify what was violated. And people talk about that all in the same way. For example, I violate if Reese and I had a scene and I posted pictures about it, and then he said, hey, I didn't want those posted, can you take them down? And I didn't take them down. I violated his consent. And that is a clear violation, and it is serious and important because it could have real implications for that person. Obviously very different from a situation where I'm flogging someone, they're saying the safe word, they're asking me to stop, and I continue going, or something like that. And so even in the communication of what the violation was, I think it's important for people to understand, what are we actually talking about here, instead of just having a blanket, you know, our community is not one that looks to restore. We look to punish and ban. And I think that's something that can be extraordinarily important to the restoration process, and having a healthy community, and also healthy community models moving forward, where people can be confident that if something happens, it will be handled.
Right.
And I can expect it to be.
Like, speaking more about like community aftercare, and actually making it a practice to talk about things that happened after a scene. Like it's okay that something went wrong. Not it's okay, but like to have the conversation to make it more normal. Like, let's talk about this and make things better. Then going to the internet, like, oh, I didn't like this, because since I've been working as a consent advocate and hearing some of the things that people say are consent violations, like I said, majority of it is miscommunication or ignorance. So when they're running to the internet like consent violator, and now you done ruined this person's reputation or harmed them in a way that it's going to take a while to repair over something that could have just been a conversation if you just debriefed and had, talk during your aftercare. So just making that like a normal practice. Like, talk to the people that you're playing with. You don't have to run to the internet all the time.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. So one last question, because we are 3 minutes after 3. If you could reinforce one notion about consent, what would it be?
That creating a culture of consent, it takes all of us. So it's not just one person and one person getting the education. It is, to shift the culture is every one of us practicing, modeling, and making the conversation normal. Like, it's not like like a one-time thing. Like, just bring it up all the time. This is our community. We want to shift the culture, so it's not just one person. I wish everyone want to teach a little bit of consent, but it is a community effort.
Okay. And so before we get into questions, we posted in the chat, and it should show up as comments on the Facebook stream and on YouTube, how people can connect with you and you also were generous enough to provide where they can where they can follow the pearls, or where they can follow your house, and I appreciate that. But what do you have coming up? How can people interact with you um, um, specifically, if they're looking to learn more about consent, or just to take um, avail themselves of your presentations?
So next, well, get on my link tree because that's the best place. I'm working with Consent Academy. We're doing like real talk where we're bringing people from leather, kink, BDSM, and swingers together to talk and have conversations about consent. Volunteering for them before, and like having women's groups. Like this is a really big group, so it's a need for it. As especially as we see a lot of producers are having these mixed spaces, so we can all come together and have like a common definition of consent, a common practice that we're going forward with. With my house, we have Leather is BIPOC coming up on September 17th, and we're doing decorative knots on the 20th. So you can check the page to more information about those. And that's it. Or you can join the consent class. Well, I said the link tree is always going to be up there. The conversation, I love having just conversations. So if you just want to just hit me up and just say, hey, this didn't make sense to me. I like breaking down things. Like I talk really plainly. Like, but if you want to get more intellectual about it, I can do that as well. So I just love conversations on consent. Hit me up.
Having had the opportunity to hear you talk about consent, framing classes in kink and things of that nature, and hearing you talk about it, that was the thing that really made it clear to me. The first class that we should offer, it should be consent. I wanted you to be the person to talk about it because I love the way you framed it. I loved your perspective. I love the way you apply real education on the subject and a real understanding, and also just a heart for making sure that people are healthy and safe and well. I just want to encourage everybody, if you have an organization or an event, please avail yourself of the resources that were mentioned today. Consent Academy, reach out to Ms. D and find out how to do more. We talk a lot about safe spaces, and this is the one of the major ways that we can make sure our safe spaces are more safe for people, is if we have an understanding of consent and how we can apply that to people broadly. So I thank you for everything that you shared so far. I believe there are a couple questions. I'm going to invite our producers and my alpha boy Ogun to read off questions. He's off camera. But do we have questions, Ogun?
Yes, sir. We actually do have a couple of questions. All right, so I'm going to show them on the screen.
Thank you.
The first question is from Trevor Marsh. And Trevor asks, how do you make it through consent because of people's traumatic experiences, that it's okay for them to try new experiences? So that's the first question.
No, I just was like, yeah, you can't make anyone make it through.
I think that the question is, how do you, when people have traumatic experiences, how do you engage in conversations around consent that encourage them to know that it's okay for them to try new experiences in spite of their past?
Right. So encouraging them, right? So not making them, we're encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
We're being a safer person for them, letting them know that you see them, taking it slow with the person who may have some trauma. Like you're not going to go into like this whole full thing, or even if it's a dynamic, maybe you're not going to do TPE tomorrow. Like gradual, take these slower steps with the person. Actually, you learn about that. You want to be with this person, you're going to learn about their trauma history and their trauma story and what's going on with them, so you can better negotiate with them. But allowing them to take the lead as well. They have the trauma. They have you're in a position of power. Allowing them to open up to you, and then leading by example, just showing them that you are who you say you are. But they're trying to tell you you're not.
Thanks for the question, Trevor, and thank you for joining us as always and your support of all of our educational offerings. Any other questions, Ogo?
Yes, sir. So we have another question from Zen the Avatar, and they ask, what's one thing you wish everyone understood about consent that would change the way we relate to each other?
That is very individual. Like you said, like, empathy is something big, like to be able to understand somebody else. So the way that I may feel something is going to be different than the way that you feel something. So sometimes like we want to put our experiences, our upbringing on somebody else. Like that's not, you shouldn't care about that. That's not a big deal. Saying things like that takes away from the other person's lived experience and then takes away from their voice, so they're not going to speak up. So giving space for other people and other people's experiences will help the world. Just everyone. If everybody had more empathy, we'd be okay. Like you ain't got like somebody that's actually understand like you are different than me. You're gonna experience the world different than me, so you may need some different kind of handling than I would need. Or then like, even between the two of you, knowing that you were two different people, and stop trying to put everybody in this one little box.
That is I don't know if I could think of a better way
Spot on.
to end today than that statement. That was absolutely incredible. So with that, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. It's a very special thanks to you, Ms. B. It's always a pleasure to hear you and to hear your perspective and to learn from you. And actually just in your presence. You are an absolute delight. And thank you so much for giving us your time today. Please, everyone, avail yourself of these resources that were offered, because it'll just make us better as a community. Please join us on the 21st of September at 2 o'clock. We will be having, that day is a Can We Talk, where Carl and I will be discussing the topic, is old guard versus new guard still a relevant conversation? And we look forward to you joining us for that. Thanks again for joining us. I hope you all have a very blessed time until we meet again. See you soon.
Have a good one.